Welcome to the Future of Wellness, exploring self-transformation and holistic healing to unlock your inner potential. Hosted by Christabel Armston and Keith Parker. Hello and welcome back to the Future of Wellness. Today we're joined by Peter McIntosh, the visionary founder and CEO of the Pyramids of Chi, an internationally renowned sound healing center in Bali, Indonesia. Following a powerful experience in meditation in 2013, Peter and his wife Lynn relocated to Bali to pursue their vision of creating a space that harnesses the power of sound and sacred geometry for healing purposes. Rooted in the principles of sacred geometry, vibrational healing, and meditation, Pyramids of Chi was designed as a space where people can reconnect with their inner selves through immersive sound experiences. The center features architecturally precise pyramids inspired by ancient civilizations, which amplify the effects of sound frequencies to promote deep healing and relaxation. Prior to Pyramids of Chi, Peter had a dynamic career in marketing and business development. He now continues to expand the global conversation on sound healing and consciousness. It's a pleasure to welcome you today, Peter. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Christabel. Thanks, Keith. It's a pleasure to be online talking to you both and having a chance to tell you a little bit more about our journey and particularly the exciting things we have happening at the Pyramids of Chi in Bali.
It sounds wonderful. Keith and I are both big fans of the pyramids, having experienced some powerful healing ceremonies there several times, actually, since 2017. I understand, and we shared a little in the bio there, that the founding of the pyramids came about as a result of a vision, I understand, you experienced in 2013, and we'd love to hear more about this.
Yeah, that's quite a story, and I tell it many, many times because it really does have a little bit of woo-woo attached to it. And for me, that was quite something because I come from a background of business and business all around the planet, and I was very fortunate in being successful at it. But then circumstances conspired, and spirit stepped in, and some amazing things happened. It probably started back in 2008 when Lynn and I retired. I'd spent much of my traveling time in North America, but never on leisure. So I decided that we wanted to go back there and spend some leisure time. Beautiful country and lots to see and do over there. So we headed off in 2008. We bought ourselves a nice big travel rig. And for 6 years, we traveled all over USA and Canada and met the most wonderful people. We didn't choose to spend any time in cities because sadly cities tend to be cities just about everywhere in the world. And in many cases they tend to lack the warmth that you get when you're out in the countryside and meeting the people there. So we had a great time, visited some beautiful places, but best of all, we made some wonderful, wonderful friends over there. In 2013, Lynn developed cataracts in both eyes, and it's pretty typical for anybody once they get the wrong side of 50. And so hospitalisation in America is very expensive. So we headed back to Perth in Australia, where we're from, for her to have the operation. Sadly, it was one of those 1 in 1,000 cases that didn't work. And so the specialist and the surgeon both said, look, take a few months, don't go back to America because we may have to do, of all things, a corneal transplant. She was diagnosed with a weird sounding thing called Fuchs dystrophy. And what would happen in the evenings, when she lay down and went to sleep, her eyeball would fill up with fluid, and the next day she really couldn't see out of that eye until around about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it was quite a difficult time for her. So we came up to Bali, which was nice and close to Perth, and we had some friends up here that had a little resort, and we stayed with them. Well, one morning I was out doing a meditation. I'd gone onto a spiritual path back in 2004, fed up with business, business, business all the time, and realised that having a new BMW every year didn't get me to the shops any quicker. So, yeah, we chose to be more into the giving and caring side of it than rather the taking and working our tails off. So I was doing the meditation this morning. It must have been about 6:30, I guess. The sun was just popping its head up above the hilltops there. And about a third of the way through the meditation, I hear a voice. Now, this is very distinct, and I'll try and mimic it, but it basically went like, build two pyramids in Ubud. And I'm like, what the heck is that? And I'm looking around everywhere trying to figure out where this voice came from. And I was staying with some friends, Mark and Cheryl. And I thought, that's just Mark being a bit of an idiot in the morning. And I looked around, I couldn't see him anywhere because I was kind of in the jungle a bit. And I thought maybe he's hiding behind a bush being stupid. So I called out to him to stop it. But then I realized that Mark rarely got out of bed before 9:30 in the morning anyway. So maybe it wasn't him. So I went back to the meditation, and within a short time, in my mind's eye, I saw the two pyramids that you would have seen when you came here, the Sun and the Moon pyramid. I saw them in my mind's eye, and it was such a clear vision. I'm thinking, wow, this is amazing. So then the difficult bit happened. I went into Lynn, who was still in bed. It wasn't even 7 o'clock. And I made that statement that many husbands make when they're not thinking smart. And I said, darling, darling. And, I got the typical response that ladies give, and it's usually something along the lines of, what? What have you done now? What do you want? What's wrong? And I said, I've just done a beautiful meditation and been told we have to build two, and I'm mumbling here, pyramids here in Bali. And, she's saying, did you say pyramids? And I said, yeah. She said, we don't know anything about pyramids. And I said, you're telling me? I don't know. Anyway, we talked at length about the whole episode that I'd had. And thank God Lynn was on a spiritual path like I'd chosen to be, back in 2004. And typical woman, sorry, I'm not knocking my wife. Typical woman with the logical brain. She says to me, well, if we can find the land, to build these pyramids, maybe it's not your imagination. And you know what, Christabel and Keith, I'm happy with that because I don't know anything about building pyramids. So for 2 months we looked around all over Ubud, couldn't find anything that felt right. And there was nothing. There's some interesting places, but nothing felt correct. Until one day, we're out looking at some land. It was 2 days before we're due to return back to Perth, and I was looking at a piece of property and it didn't feel good. So I walked across the road and across a couple of rice fields. And as I got to the second rice field, I felt these goosebumps up the back of my arm, and quite emphatic, all of a sudden, wow, what's that? And I turned around to Lynn to say, I've just got these goosebumps. Before I'd even opened my mouth, she says, I've just got what you're experiencing. And so we made our way down to the bottom of the property where there's a little river there. And by the time we got down there, we knew our feeling was telling us we'd found the site. Well, it was a long story, but eventually we managed to secure that site. It wasn't for sale, it wasn't for lease, but Spirit was on side there, and we got it. And amazingly enough, we got it for market price. In most cases like that, they would see, newbie written across your forehead and think, well, this man doesn't know what he's looking for. We'll put the price up. But no, Wyan, the owner, was beautifully aware of what we're trying to do, I think. And so we got market price. So we did a deal, and then we went back to Perth to see if we could raise some more money for it, because we had some funds, but we'd done some research during our time looking for the land and knew it was going to cost $2 or $3 million to build it. And we didn't have that much money. So we went back to Perth, and this is where it gets a bit funny. Um, I went to my ex-wife's husband, and that went back to 1987. So we get along well with him. And I said to Chris, I said, Chris, um, mate, I've had an amazing message up in Bali, and I'm being told I have to build 2 pyramids in Bali. And he looks at me and takes a drink of his red wine and says, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah, but initially, what I'd like to do is see if I can and get some investors in and raise maybe $1 million to get started. I've done a whole program on it, and I think it's quite exciting." Well, he just looks at me, gets his wine again, and just about chokes on it, and said, "Peter, you know, it's not going to happen, mate. People are not going to invest that much money in Bali with the current economic climate we're in." And that was back in 2013, and they just come out of a pretty tough time, and I thought, okay, he's probably right. He's big in financial circles, and he would know. So we finished our drinks and made our way back to where we were staying at the time, bearing in mind that after the 6 years in Bali, in America we'd actually sold our home. So we're there, and I'm saying to Lynn, "Well, what do we do now?" And she said, "Well, look, when we went onto the spiritual path, we got taught how to do automatic writing." And I don't know whether either of you have come across that before, but it's an amazing process, as you're probably aware. And we thought, okay, well, let's ask God, let's see, or whoever's listening at the time. So we put ourselves into a meditative state. Um, I wrote on my book, and Lynn wrote on hers. God, if we're meant to be building pyramids in Bali, where's the money? Right, a little bit tongue in cheek. So Lynn goes off into the dining room. I'm in the family room, and there we are. Um, we're both right-handed, so we put the pen in our left hand, and we're waiting for the words to come through. And seriously, if anybody wants to try this, it's not easy, especially when you first start. Um, but you have to just blank everything out. No distractions of any kind whatsoever. And then when the first word comes through, you write it with your left hand very carefully so you can read it later. And then the next word, the next word. You can't anticipate the words or the sentence. Very important. After about 20 minutes, Lynn comes out to me and she shows me her book. And she's shaking her head and going, "This is incredible." And I said, "What is it?" I read the words and it said, "There are people wanting to give you the money." Thinking, fantastic. "What did you get?" she said. And I said, "Well, look at mine. There are investors waiting to meet with you." Wow. So very quickly, back to spirit. How do we find them? You know, well, spirit came back with 4 words, just 4 brief words. Typical spirit, I think. They like to make you work for it. And the words were quite simply, "Don't spend much money." Don't spend much money. They're the sort of words I say to Lynn when she goes shopping. Never works, but I try, you know. And I'm saying to Lynn, that's nonsense. It's nonsense. I've been in business since 77 for myself. You don't raise $1 million by not spending some money to find the people with the investment. She just looks at me and says, "Well, Peter, come on, come on. You know the story. We listen to what we're being told and we act on it." I said, "Okay, righto." So we did. We put a small ad on a local website, and then we also put a small ad in the local newspaper, which was just a picture of a couple of pyramids and Bali business opportunity and a telephone number. We then handed it back and said, "Okay, Spirit, it's in your hands now. It's up to you." We've spent $41. That was all on the ad in the paper. And I'm a little bit skeptical at this, of course, thinking, yeah, right, okay, but we've done as we're told. At this point, when I'm telling the story to other people, I put my hand on my heart And I say, within 3 weeks, we had $750,000 sitting in our bank account, well, pledged to us from three investors. They all invested $250,000 each. We were ready to go. The way these people came out of left field, we didn't know them. They didn't know each other. But best of all, none of them read my business plan, which I'd spent 3 weeks working on before they said, we're in. So that's kind of the woo-woo story of how we started. And, we then went back to America. We sold our rig off and moved to Bali, and that was in 2013. And it's been an amazing journey from that day onwards.
Wonderful story. Seems like so many things lined up there, so many synchronicities and so much guidance. Fast forward 12 years later, we're now in 2025. Tell us what are the pyramids of Chi? How would you describe them? I mean, we said there are these two pyramids. You said you didn't know much about pyramids when you had this vision. So, what did you learn about what pyramids are? Why do you employ them in the sound healing experience? Tell us a little bit about how that's functioning pyramids and what's going on today.
Yeah, good question, Keith. I thank God for Google, mate. I spent hours on Google learning all about pyramids, reading books from people that had done a lot of research on pyramids and what they're all about. I learned uh, the main issue with pyramids, which is called sacred geometry. They're all built all over the planet, and there's thousands and thousands of pyramids out there, thousands of them. Most people just think of Egypt or maybe Mexico, but there's thousands of pyramids. Every continent in the world has got pyramids on it. And so, I did all this research and realized that if we're going to build them, we have to build them according to sacred geometry. So then it was a matter of finding a builder. It just went on and on. It took us almost 4 years to get them built. We now have three pyramids, a couple of domes. We have all sorts of structures on our property now. But the pyramids were the challenge because you can't build a pyramid like a regular house. To start off with, you can't put any scaffolding around the outside. So, of course, the authorities hate that. They want you to put scaffolding around everything these days, all health and safety and everything else. Well, that wasn't possible. We had to build them from the inside out. Um, the whole concept of pyramids is about energy. Pyramids create the most incredible energy if you build them according to sacred geometry, and that is that the angle at the base has to be 52 degrees or 51.8 degrees through to the peak, the apex, and one wall has to face exactly true north. That's not magnetic north, it's true north. Now, if you can combine those two elements together, then the amazing thing that happens within a pyramid, it's been defined as electromagnetic energies. It's all sorts of things. I don't think anybody ever has really narrowed it down to what happens inside a pyramid. But if you talk to anybody that's been inside pyramids, and you can do it in Egypt, for instance, where you can go up into the top of the Sun Pyramid, into the King's Chamber. Everybody I've ever spoken to that's been inside a pyramid have all said the same thing. The effect of energy on them is quite extreme. You know, now you don't have to be a believer. You can be the biggest skeptic around, and we've had them at the pyramids ourselves. We've had some amazing skeptics. There's some fabulous stories about skeptics that come out of there, out of one of the pyramids, shaking their heads and saying, "I don't know what you've got, but you've sure got something in there." So that energy is a big thing. Our journey during that time was very challenging. We're talking about living in a country that English is not the first language, not even the second language, where dealing with a culture that is totally different to ours. Um, we're dealing with authorities that have some really interesting rules and regulations. It just went on and on. Language obviously was a big issue in the beginning, but at the end of the day, we achieved what we set out to do. Lots and lots of interesting times with getting the right amount of money to finish it all off, things like that. We ended up with a number of investors. We decided we weren't going to sell any more than the 49% share. Someone had to be in charge, someone had to have control. But we attracted the most amazing people. Those first three investors, they're now close personal friends, very close. We go back to Perth, they're all in Perth, and we always, one of the first things we do is make a time to get together with them, either individually or as a group down at the nearest coffee lounge, having a good old chinwag, whatever it might be. One thing we do know, and we know so much, is that none of the whole episode that's happened could have happened without our belief in a higher power. We're not religious, but boy, we believe there's a higher power there pulling the strings. You can call it God, spirit, universe, the architect, the Jesus, Muhammad. I don't care what names are used there. What I do know is that when we ask for guidance, help, assistance, whatever it might be, it's always forthcoming. And sometimes it comes from the most amazing places that you'd never expect. And we know now that our journey and bringing sound healing to people was meant to happen. Yes, there is a definite need for what we do. We're now up to around getting close to 260,000 people that have visited us. That's 250,000 people that come and visited us in 6 years.
Incredible to hear, Peter. 260,000 is indeed an incredible number. You mentioned there about the energetic effects, right? People leaving the pyramids after a sound healing session, and sort of speaking of the potency, right? What is it that you yourself have experienced, or what are the type of phenomena that people do experience in the pyramids? For those who are not familiar, what are the sort of stories or the experiences people share with you?
In 2024, we finished our book, which was called Expect the Unexpected. And that's my favorite saying around the pyramids when I'm talking to people. Don't come here with expectations. Have an open mind, have an open heart, because expect the unexpected, because that's what kind of happens. So we wrote this book. Now, not only is it a story of how it all happened and a little bit of background on Lynn and I, but it's also the last third of that book, and it's quite a thick book, the last third of it are stories that I've had shared with me by people coming out of the pyramids, right? They've told me of their healings, their messages, their all sorts of things that they have had happen to them as a result of going into one of the pyramids. Now, they are from seeing loved ones that have passed to getting guidance on the existing partnerships with family or friends or work or whatever, to physical reactions. There are so many stories in there from people that have literally had curings, had healings, and that's what it's about. Sound is healing. Sound was created for healing long before anything else was ever created. We play so many different instruments in there. The main ones being the gongs. They're a symphonic gong. They're sourced out of China. We've tried the supposed best gongs in the world, which is the Peisty gongs out of Germany. For some reason, they just don't resonate in the pyramids well. And we've tried them. We've had them ourselves. We had people visit us, bringing their own gongs to try special sessions in there. But at the end of the day, we fall back on what we call the chow gongs. They give beautiful sounds, and we've been told by people that know a lot more than I do about the effect of frequencies of sounds, and that is after human voice, the gong is the most effective instrument in working on our chakra systems, our energy centers. And then, believe it or not, the Australian instrument, the didgeridoo, it's a long wooden tube that they make out of, well, they used to make from trees with the termites hollowing out the inside. But that is the third thing that has the most incredible range of tonals that can reach our chakra system. And then, of course, it goes into drums and singing bowls and many other instruments. We have all of them. The best thing about being at the Pyramids of Chi is that we receive compliments all day long. And, I thank God I got rid of my ego when I moved onto the spiritual path. Well, I think I have. My wife tells me I have. But really, it's the most beautiful feeling when you've got people constantly telling you what a wonderful experience I've had, thanking us for creating the Pyramids of Chi, and it goes on and on. And we have people leaving with a smile on their face. They might have come wondering what the heck it's all about, but they leave with a smile on their face. And that's not because of Lynn and Peter, it's because of everything else that's combined. The sounds, the frequencies, the energies, and people bounce off each other. It's just a place where, particularly the ladies, where they feel very safe. And following the pandemic, we've had thousands and thousands of ladies coming, particularly in groups, to Bali, and they're looking for answers because that pandemic threw a lot of questions at a lot of people that there were no simple answers to. And of course, they can come up here, they can feel safe whether with a group or individually in our environment. And these are things that get passed on to me, and they're within the book, and that'll tell you the whole story. So rather than go into a lot of what you just asked me, read the book.
A brief pause to thank you for listening to this episode. If you're looking to take the next step in your transformation, find out how we can support you with our popular energy healing training, one-to-one private sessions, free resources, and more. Visit energyfielddynamics.com to learn more. You started with the vision of the pyramids. Was it build two pyramids in Bali, right? I believe that was correct. So could you tell us, when did sound become a part of this? Originally, it was just pyramids, and you've described how sacred geometry and the angles and the shape of the pyramid has to do with the energy that it produces. When did sound become the thing that happens inside of the pyramids? Was there a particular moment or experience when you realized, oh, these are not only pyramids to build, but we're going to have things happen inside of the pyramids, and sound became the carrier wave, if you will?
Again, a good question, Keith, but it was a very, very simple answer. It came in the first day. All right. We were sort of bemused. Why do we have to build pyramids? What are we going to do in pyramids? I had a feeling because we'd been involved in a sort of a hobby business back in Perth, in like an Indian teepee that had been built, and we had some gongs in there, and we saw some results. And I thought, is this what it's about? Do we have to have these sort of instruments in pyramids? I mean, the teepee building we built, which we call the Quiet Cone, it's in the book, it's in the stories, was only can only hold 12 people, and here we have pyramids that can hold 70 people. So we did our automatic writing again, and we asked the question: is this what it's about? And we received a very emphatic yes. And you have to combine that with the energies that the pyramids give, the energies that the guests bring with them. You've got to be very, very cautious of the people that you employ to play these instruments. They've got to come from the heart space, not because they want to earn some money. They've got to have the drive, the affection, everything else that's needed to reach the people in the pyramids by playing those instruments. And you know what, folks? We have never ever had to go looking for our facilitators, gong players, whatever you want to call them. They've all come to us. And so we have people all the time coming to us say, how can I be involved in doing what you people do here at the pyramids? So, yep, sound came to us very early in the piece, and we just knew that we were meant to bring in many different instruments, and we had to learn how to play some of them. And it's just been an amazing experience in sound and what it can do for people. Sound is a beautiful thing, and look, we all have an appreciation for sound, don't we? I still love rock and roll and country music. But then again, I've got a friend that also loves death metal or whatever it's called, and I'm thinking, how can you listen to that stuff? But, different sounds, different frequencies, different vibrations work on us in different ways. We hear certain frequencies, and I won't get into that because that gets a bit scientific in some ways, but there's different frequencies that we are made of, the earth is made of, the atmosphere around us is all about. But you know what? It's what each person as an individual associates with because of that reaction within themselves, whether it's within their hearts, within their chakra systems, within their skin, their bodies, whatever it might be. And when it does happen, it's a feel good. It's a feel good factor. And then, of course, amazing things follow suit.
I wonder if you wouldn't mind elaborating, Peter, a little on the gongs, if that's something you'd like to speak of. I understand. I think I'm correct in thinking both yourself and your wife Lynn are gong masters. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Gongs have this fascinating reputation. You mentioned earlier yourself about how they work very directly with the energy field and the system, the chakras. There's almost a phenomena, if you will, spoken of amongst gong practitioners where the first time a person experiences a gong bath, that experience is often never repeated in the same way. I had that very sacred experience myself. I was fortunate enough to have a very powerful and very particular experience of gongs the first time that was a very palpable dissolution of self almost. I don't know quite how else to explain that. Could you share with us a little about why you think the gongs have this impact? Is it to do with the frequencies you just mentioned? Is it something else from your perspective?
I wish I could give you a straight answer to that one, Christabel. I really do. I've been asked that a number of times. We were told in our writings that we should play the gongs in the ancient sounds in the Sun Pyramid for a minimum of 50% of the time while people are in there. I've also been told that you may have come across Don Conroe. He was sort of probably the guru of gong playing on this planet. And when it comes to spiritual healing, he taught Lynn and I. He had said the same thing as well. And we've met many, many very, very well-known spiritual people, gong practitioners, and they're all adamant that the gong is, after the human voice. I've got to say the human voice is the best. You wouldn't want to hear me sing, but but if it's done the right way, we all get enthralled by that. So yeah, many, many people have told us that the gong is the way to do it. And we know. I can get sometimes called in to do a session, and maybe one of our practitioners has had an accident or is running late or whatever. And I don't play very often. But when I do, and I could be feeling really tired because I've had a busy day or whatever it might be. But the first time that mallet strikes the gong, something starts happening within. And within a matter of minutes, I'm feeling that energy rise. And by the time I'm finished, I'm on top of the world. You know, it's like someone's gone and stuck a needle in my arm and given me a whack of energy. And and when I'm riding home that evening, maybe back to our house where we live, yeah, it's almost not a feeling of euphoria, but a total and utter feeling of satisfaction, because that's what the gong can do. And we sell quite a few gongs because people say, I want one of those. And I've never had a complaint from anybody yet about their gongs. In fact, many people come back and buy more, and maybe they'll go them and buy them from Paiste or some of the European suppliers. We do have a gong made locally here, an Indonesian Balinese gong, but it's got no real qualities like the gongs that we've used. They can't hold a note for longer than about 5 seconds. Whereas the gongs we play, we've measured them and they can still be vibrating 3 minutes after the mallet's been struck. So, no, the gong is something special. We believe that they have a life of their own. We have great respect for them. And one thing I do, if I'm doing any training, and these days I don't do a lot anymore because the people tend to come to us, with training, is that they must, when they sit down or stand up in front of the gongs, they must ask permission. They must respect the gong because it's not like a regular instrument that you play and what sound's going to come out of it. You can play, and I don't know if either of you have had much experience playing the gongs, but you can play on different parts of the face of the gong and get completely different notes. And there is, particularly with the big gong more than the smaller gongs, there is some beautiful sounds that sometimes you can be fortunate enough they'll come through. One is at about, I guess, probably 2 o'clock on the face of the gong, like a clock. There's a sound, if you play on that with the right mallet, it can come out. And we've nicknamed it the choir of angels. It is such an ethereal, high-pitched, beautiful sound. If it comes through, you're sometimes guilty of playing it for about 5 minutes because, it's just not something you can go in and do. And then we have another one, which is on the opposite side, which is at about 7 or 8 o'clock. And that's very deep. And the best way of describing it is like Gregorian monks singing in a chapel or something, The same again, you can't make it happen, but when it does, you say thank you. So that's, to me, is why a gong has got such beautiful qualities about it. All you do is you use the mallets in the best way you can. We have about 7 different mallets that we use to introduce different tones, but sometimes it gives you a special gift back. And when that does come, you're gobsmacked.
So the pyramids of Chi are not just anywhere in the world. They're in Bali. Christabel and I have had quite a bit of experience in Bali, and it is undeniable the energy of Bali. Bali is a special place. It's a unique place. How has the integration or the combination of making these pyramids and doing all this healing work, how has that connected to the island of Bali, the energies of Bali, the culture of Bali?
Yeah, perfectly. I could not describe it better, but perfectly. The way I found the land, the way that Lynn and I discovered the land, was because God wanted us to be there. The universe wanted us to be there. There exists on that land 6 very strong energy centers. And energy centers exist all over the land. You go to somewhere like Sedona in Arizona, you get the map, It shows where all the energy centers are in that area. We were very fortunate in being taught how to find energy centers by using the divining rods. But we've had other people look for them as well. And in the cafe itself, we have one of the pillars that have got carvings all around it. That's in the center of the cafe. It was never designed to sit on top of what we've since been told is an energy vortex. And that was told to us by a man who is probably one of the foremost authorities on pyramids in Hong Kong, of all places. And we know that Bali is a place of beautiful energy. The people are beautiful. You know, you'll never have a fight with anybody that's Balinese because they have in their culture, they do not deal with confrontation. You know, you want to have an argument with the Balinese, they'll run away from you. The island, when you're walking around the rice fields in the morning like we are with our dogs, the word is pagi or selamat pagi, which is good morning, and everybody says it to you, and they say it with a smile. You know, it's one of those places that is really feel good, very much a feel good place. It just goes on and on. Our site has got the right energies. Our people that work there, we have over 60 staff now. Nearly 50 different facilitators come in to do different sessions, play different instruments, whatever. Everybody's bringing their own special message to us, whether it's just in a smile, whether it's in a lot of laughter, whether it's just in knowing that they've visited a place that is very different. Because yes, this is the only place in the world like it. There is nowhere else. But I have to say, at the moment, we have places all over the world that are seriously talking to us about setting up pyramids of Chi there. We're not going to sell our expertise and everything we've learned and developed over 11 years, going on 12 now, to someone who is purely looking at, the return on investment. If someone's interested, whether they be a president of a company, whether they be a lady that does yoga back in Queensland in Australia or whatever, they've got to have that passion that we have for sound healing and the belief that what they're doing is all about healing. That's kind of where we're headed to, guys. We know that globally, in years to come, there will be a lot of pyramids of Chi out there. Who knows where the first one will be? I've got some suspicions, but we're leaving that up to Spirit to make the final decision, and of course the investors and ourselves. But we just know that when it does happen, it's going to snowball. It's going to go to a point where all of a sudden, our management team here are going to be run off our feet, looking to see where we can put them in different places. So, yep, it's a one of a kind now, but not for long.
It's wonderful to hear you speak, Peter, about that. It sounds very much as if you and Lynn view yourselves as stewards of something greater than yourselves, that you've been fortunate enough to help manifest and, provide a manifestation, a materialization of something greater. So it's just very beautiful to hear you speak of it. Of course, we wish you the best of luck. Not that it sounds like you'll need it. You're well supported. And what an incredible vision, having spent time in the current pyramids of Chi in Bali. What an incredible vision to imagine that being distributed and other opportunities across the globe. It's a very nice thing to feel into. You've shared a little bit about the offerings. You mentioned the book. Where is it that people can find information on the pyramids of Chi if they'd like to come and visit you when they're next in Bali?
Quite simple, just pyramids, not pyramid, but pyramidsofchi.com. It's our website. And if they want to read the story, it's expecttheunexpectedbook.com. And, there's a very open opportunity for people to come here. All we ask is when people do come here, and okay, we get the skeptics occasionally, but we sort them out. But come here without expectations, come here with an open mind, an open heart, and be prepared for whatever does come through, because it can be quite exciting. And I quite often get asked, well, what are your words of advice, Peter? When I'm sitting at a table with someone over a cup of chai or tea or coffee or whatever, and my same statement comes through every time, do not listen to that stuff that keeps your ears apart, all right? The brain. Listen to your heart first and foremost. Any decisions you have to make, put it back to the heart, because that's where God resides. That's where the decision-making should always come from. If you're relying on the brain to do it, you're going to get into trouble. So that's my advice to everybody today that, might, or in the future, that might be listening to your beautiful podcast. Don't be persuaded by people with other motives. Some can be very jealous if you go off on your own and try and do something special. We've had a lot of people like that have tried to put down what we've done, but the numbers speak for themselves these days. Follow your heart, believe in the messages you get, and tell the rest of them to go away. Just do your thing, and you'll be surprised at what can happen when you follow your heart.
Well, really appreciate that advice, Peter. Thank you so much for your time today, your wisdom, sharing your story about the pyramids of Chi, and hoping that some people listening to this will someday be in them and receive a sound healing and experience it for themselves.
Well, thank you guys once again for the opportunity to be on your podcast, and I appreciate the work you're doing. I looked into it when you first came online. I've thoroughly enjoyed this opportunity to share a little bit more about our journey and what the Pyramids of Chi is all about. Okay, see you guys. Thanks again.
Thanks for being a part of the Future of Wellness. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps us reach more people and to make great episodes like this one. Learn more about field dynamics and why we think the future of wellness matters. Check us out at energyfielddynamics.com. See you next time.